All right, good morning, everyone, and welcome to the Romance Revolution panel here at FanExpo. This is where we are spilling the tea on writing swoon-worthy romance with all of our favorite local authors. First off, my name is Elizabeth Skarpnes. I am the author of the Cozy Cottagecore Romantasy to the Gallows and your moderator for the next 60 minutes. And joining us today, we have, in no particular order of my favorites, Jenny Howe. We have, hold on, I think we need to try that again. Jenny Howe. There we go. We have Kim Swizz. We have Lenora Woods. And then we have the lovely Chelsea Curto. So to start us off, we are going to have each of our authors tell us a little bit about their most recent release and what their favorite writing drink is. So Jenny, will you start us off?
Do I pick it up?
Pick it up. Pick it up. You can lean in, whatever.
All right. Yeah, okay. All right. Sorry, are you awake now? All right. Excellent. Hi, I'm Jenny Howe. My most recent release, which was like 3 weeks ago at this point, is my YA romance debut, Love at Full Tilt. It's about a recent high school grad who gets to go on the trip of a lifetime to be in a super fan scavenger hunt for the 50th anniversary of this big immersive amusement park. It's not Disney. Right? And the prize is $50,000, which would change her life and let her make some different decisions about her future. But when she gets there, she meets her fellow contestant. They become friends. He needs the money too. They're starting to fall in love. What's gonna happen? Who knows, because it's a romance novel. No one knows how they end. And my favorite writing drink in the winter is hot chocolate. All year round is water with more ice than water. Like, I just really love cold water.
Hi everyone, my name is Kim Swizz. My most recent release is In the Stars Rewritten. It is the second book in my interconnected standalone series, which means the books happen in the same universe. They are chronological, but you can pick up any one and you'll get a full story from it without being confused. This one follows Piper and Scott. Piper moves up to the small town following her best friend. She's like, hey, she had a good time with it. People move for their partners all the time. Why wouldn't I move for my best friend? Going to seek happiness after rage quitting her job. Ends up roommates with Scott, who she met last year very briefly. Scott immediately fell in love with her and is like, I'm the man for you. And she goes, I am no good for you. And he goes, that sounds great, step on me. So this is her reluctant story, his eager story of their love. It's roommates, tension, quirky small town, rogue raccoon, teen time. And then when I am writing, I am definitely an ADHD multiple beverage girly. As you can see, I already have 2 right now. Usually I have water, coffee, and then Alani, and I do drink all of them at the same time, and I don't throw up. I mean, like, it's one of those things like the soda machine, the suicide.
Hold on, testing. Hold on, is this working? I can't tell.
I think so, yeah.
It's hard to tell up here.
Sorry.
No, not at all.
We can just yell at you.
I'm Lenora Woods, and this is my debut romance novel, Roll for Romance. And my book is about Sadie, who has just lost her job in New York City and doesn't know what to do for the summer. So she moves in with her best friend, who's not the romance interest, in Texas, and says, you know what, I have a lot of free time now. I will join a D&D game and just see what happens. And at the D&D game, which is all first-time D&D players, she meets Noah, who is also new in town in their small Texas town, and he works at the local brewery. And their characters start to flirt, and then they start to flirt, and they start to fall in love over the course of their D&D game. And you get to see both their characters fall in love in a fantasy kind of way with different chapters, and then contemporary romance as well. And my favorite writing drink, I love writing in breweries. A lot of my book takes place at a brewery, so sometimes a nice beer is fun, but I also am a morning writer, so just having like my first cup of like steaming hot coffee in the morning really gets me awake and ready to work.
You can say beer at 9 a.m. We won't judge you.
Yeah, that 8 a.m. beer sounds awesome.
Yeah.
The hoppier, the better.
Oh yeah. I wrote a lot of book too at 6 a.m. It was like when I clocked in, so I love doing that in the morning.
Hi, I'm Chelsea. I write sports romances, and not just sports romances, I write women in sports romances. Yes, I know, more of that, I know. This is book 4 in my hockey series, but book 1 in the hockey series. She's in the NHL too. It's called Face Off. I know it doesn't happen in real life. It's fiction. We roll with it, okay? We roll for romance. So this is book 4, my latest one, Hat Trick. When I write romance novels, I try to figure out how I can bend the storyline that's been told before a little bit. So for this one, he is a hockey player who lost his leg in a car accident, and she's the athletic trainer. So she's rehabbing him back to skating health, but not really skating health, and they obviously fall in love along the way. But I like to write women who are strong, who are independent, who are in spaces where men don't want them to be, but the men in my books like them there. It's everyone else who doesn't like them there. So it's really fun to write that, to write a world where it's so male-dominated, but women have the power, like in sports. So Hat Trick is my latest one, and my favorite writing drink is water. I'm only a water girly, and chocolate milk, surprisingly. But no alcohol, no coffee. I just kind of raw dog my writing with no caffeine.
That is great. That is very brave. So, before we talk about romance as a genre, let's define it. We all know that capital R romance has to have a happily ever after. But what does romance mean to you, and what makes you not only want to read the genre, but write it? Anyone can answer at any time. Kim, you got it?
What? That's interesting.
We're gonna like lay on the table. It's gonna be a real casual experience here. So to me, romance is a book about hope, escape, and joy. And to me, I love having multiple different kinds of love in my romance books. Like you're gonna see really strong girl friendships. We have girls all over the place, and if I have a girl who's not a girl's girl, that is very much on purpose to show the difference. But I love love. I love writing about love, and I love escaping into love when the world is. And that's what drew me to romance. So in a past life, I was a tax lawyer.
Oh, I'm very sorry.
Yep. So before this, I was a tax lawyer, and I left because it was honestly like, in terms of big law, it was as good as it could have been, and I still hated it. So I say that I came to romance to find joy, and that is 100% true. I had moved away from reading basically entirely in law school and being a lawyer because I scheduled showers, literally. So once I left law, I dove head first. No bungee cord, like we're just jumping into romance, and it brought me a level of joy that I had missed since I was like in high school. And as I kept reading, I would just get these weird little ideas, and I was like, oh, that would be a fun little story. And I was sitting on the back patio of my friend's parents' house in New Hampshire, and I'm looking down the lake, and I just had this vision of a woman threatening a man who she thought was a trespasser with a frying pan. And I was like, I got this crazy idea. What if I just did this? And that's what brought me to romance. And then I just kept going because it's like that thing that they say, when you love what you do, it's not work, and it actually feels that way, even though there are so many days when I sit here and I'm like, I hate my book, I hate this, I hate that, this is so hard. But net, it is such a joyful experience to get to make these worlds and to bring that happiness when happiness may be scarce. That's what keeps bringing me back to it. And I'm having a great time.
Well, I'll let you guys clap. It's excellent.
You're all praised early.
Yes. I too come to romance for joy. I particularly really like to laugh, and I like to make people laugh. But I also write romance because there aren't enough romances, I think, that show that everybody gets love, right? Like, and particularly as someone in a plus-size body, who has always been in a plus-size body. I grew up in the 90s, bless my heart, where Britney Spears was fat, right, and Bridget Jones was fat, and I never saw anybody look like me who wasn't the best friend, the villain, or the person to laugh at. And so I was in my 20s thinking no one was ever gonna love me and I was never gonna get a romance story of my own. I've been married 19 years last month, so it happened. But I write books to remind everybody that no matter what your body looks like, you are worthy of love, you can find love, and you will find love when you're ready. Whatever that love looks like, whether it be friendship, family, romantic. And so all my books feature plus-size main characters and often male heroes in different kinds of bodies too, so that they don't all have 9 six-packs and can barely stand up because of their elephant trunk. Things of that nature.
I think there's something so comforting in picking up a romance novel and knowing whatever is happening outside in the world, these two people are going to fall in love. And I don't know, I like to say that everybody and everybody deserves a love story, and I think that in a world that, as Kim said, is just kind of on fire constantly, it's just nice to escape to somewhere where, yeah, there might be a little drama, but at the end of the day, you know that these two people are going to fall in love. And whatever, stigmas and opinions you want to have about that, fine, but like that brings me joy, it brings all of us joy, it brings millions of readers across the world joy, and I think there's something special in that. And how, Kim said, it's not just like the love between the two love interests, it's the friends and the family, and I write a lot of like platonic love with the guys being friends and the girls being best friends, and I think we need to see more of that because it's just, there's a lot of not nice things happening out there these days. So I don't know, it's just comforting to find that in a book and know that it's going to end, well, it's supposed to end. That's a whole different debate. It's supposed to end with a happily ever after. Yeah, we're not having that debate. Go on Threads, you'll find out about that discourse.
I have a PhD in medieval romance.
You need a happily ever after to be a romance. It is required. But no, it's nice that we all sit down and I don't know how y'all feel, but it just kind of, the rest of the world kind of goes away, and for a little bit I escape to this little world where I'm like, oh, these men love their women and there's no bad things and life is so good, and then I turn on the 6:30 news, I'm like, well shit, this is lovely.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what else I could add to all of these like wonderful questions, or wonderful answers rather, but I think the only last thing I'll say is like love and romance for me can be like such a healing experience as well. I mean, I wrote this book, I was super burnt out, and I was like, what would make me feel better? Writing romance. And my main character kind of goes through burnout as well, and I think what y'all were saying about like, you're falling in love with your person for sure, but you're also having these found family dynamics or like your best friend and stuff, but I also think there's an aspect of like, you have to kind of love yourself to fall in love with someone else, and I think these like journeys of like the main characters kind of learning to love themselves as well and learning like that about themselves as they're also falling in love with someone else is something I really loved exploring in romance, but also just everything everyone else said, I feel the same way, and I think that's what's so magical about this genre.
Can I, before we move on,
Yeah.
something Kelsey said made me think too, the fun thing about romance, you know how it's going to end, but how are they going to get there? Right? Like, to me, that's what's fun about it, right? It's like, because sometimes you hit the third act and you're like, this is never working out, right? And so I think that's what's great about formula genres, right? Is like, the formula, so like, how do the authors play with that formula, right? Like, 14 grumpy sunshine romances can look completely different.
Exactly. Where you get to a point, you're like, wait, this is gonna be happily ever after, right?
Yeah.
And then when they get there, you're like, okay.
Yeah, and the thing is, sometimes it is not about the destination, but the journey getting there. And I think this also comes to my next question. Actually, y'all act like you know the questions ahead of time. We talked a lot about how the world's kind of crappy right now, and has been kind of crappy for a little bit. COVID really blew up the romance genre, reading in general, but specifically the romance genre. My personal opinion is that I think it's because of the guaranteed happily ever after. And it really has changed the game of romance publishing in general. Why do you think that is, and how has it affected you? Has it affected you? Ginny.
So I think it comes back at least somewhat to the formula thing again. For me, I love horror, I love fantasy, but you never know where those books are going. And that was it could be the coziest fantasy, and it was too stressful for me during COVID to I don't care how cozy this ends, I don't know how we're getting there, and I can't do it. I was only reading thrillers and romance during COVID for a whole year. It was murder, love. And now we can get them together, right? You pick up a Bryn Weaver book, right? And you've got everything you need right there. But, because I knew how it would end. I knew the thriller would give me answers. I knew that they would end happily. And during COVID, we did not know from day to day what was going to happen, right? And I think it comes back to joy. Is when everything is crap and you want to escape. Some people want to escape to horror or dystopia, but I need to go somewhere where it's there's hope and things are happy, right? And I'm really grateful for that boost in the way it's given us things like Lovestruck, that is a whole bookstore based around romance. The last 5 years have legitimized romance in a way that for a long time, people would hide their books, right? There were discreet covers. My favorite is the Sierra Simone Priest, where the discreet cover is a flower, and the actual cover is a half-naked priest, and
I have a super funny story about that. I was on the T once. I was on the T and I was reading Priest, and I was on the red line, and this woman goes to get off, and I'm at the very end seat, which is the best seat to get on the T, unless you have the new red line where it's the solo seat. That is the introvert seat. And this woman was getting off, she puts her hand on my shoulder and she goes, "God bless you." And I'm like, "I don't know what you think."
she's on the altar, etc.
That book taught me I've been using pianos wrong my entire life.
But the discreet cover thing, right? You have to hide what you're reading. And I feel now you could just walk into a whole bookstore that is just, my favorite mug at Lovestruck is just a pair of boobs, right? I see it every time I go in. I'm I need to buy this and just walk into class one day with the mug that's just boobs and see what my freshmen in college do. But I'm so grateful for the fact that we've stopped seeing romance as something you need to hide, that it's not a genre that has any level of gravity or significance. And as much as I don't want us to have a pandemic to have to get there, to me that's been one of the positive things that's come out of it.
Yeah, I just want to echo that for sure. But also I feel romance, at its center is about connection. And I feel whether it's connection to the love interest or the friends or family whoever else is in the book. But I feel COVID was just such a tough time for connection. We could do it online, played a lot of D&D online during COVID, so many games online. But you just couldn't touch people, you couldn't and be close or in those spaces together. So I feel that lack of connection, the happy ending is certainly, it's the most important thing to me as well, but also just being able to imagine being with people in that way, and also just connecting and sharing those spaces was really important. And I think maybe not connected to COVID as much, but I think over the past few decades, the conversation about being open about your sexuality is something that has become so wonderful, I think, in recent years. And I think being able to have those discussions openly in spaces like Lovestruck and other big romance bookstores. But I used to work as a bookseller, an indie bookseller back in 2016, and our romance bookshelf was a singular bookshelf. It was something we were oh, we hide that one behind the stairs if you want to go look at those books or whatever.
Behind the curtain,
literally. Yeah, but now it's like the fact that we can be more open about discussing like what do we love about love and what do we love about relationships and like what makes us proud about that I think is really special and something that kind of coincided with that as well. So
I've been informed that if you two want to learn how to use a piano correctly, they do have priests here today. FYI.
And it's the discreet cover, if you want.
Yeah. So no one will know what you're learning. You guys are learning it.
Chelsea, Kim, anything to add?
I actually started writing during COVID. I'm a flight attendant based in Boston, and I took a leave of absence because I didn't know what was happening with the world. And I was like, I can take a couple months off so someone else can keep their job. So I took, I think, like 3 months and then 6 months. But there was a period of time where I was not sleeping. I consumed like 30 books a month. I just stayed up all night reading, just, dread and everything about what was happening in the world. And I remember I read People We Meet on Vacation by Emily Henry, and I was just blown away. That was like my kind of first step back in romance. And I'm like, well, nothing will ever beat this. I don't think anything ever has beaten that. It's such a good book. But then I was like, I'm going to try to write a book. And reading and writing are not the same things, as I quickly learned. But, I think it's sad, like how Jenny said, we were all kind of stuck, and no one wants a pandemic, but because we were all kind of stuck together in different places, that's where this, genre boomed from. And yesterday, I wrote about this on Threads. I was coming back from a signing. I was taking an Uber to the airport in Myrtle Beach, and I had my banner, which had broken, which got tossed at the airport, but my Uber driver was like, oh, what are you promoting? And I'm like, oh, I'm an author, and I always just kind of leave it at that, because it's like an older gentleman, and I'm just like, oh, I'm just an author, and because I've always been on the other end of this stigma of, oh, okay, romance, and he's like, well, what do you write? And I said, I write romance novels, and we had a conversation, and he was just so excited. He's like, I love romance, I love rom-coms, my wife and I watch Hallmark movies every Sunday with a big breakfast. He's like, I hope all your books get turned into movies, and I was like, oh my god, this is wonderful. And he was like, I don't buy into all that stuff about, the romance industry and genre, and I'm like, well, thank you, it's really nice to hear. So I think, again, COVID sucked, but I think it really changed people's perception of the genre, which is nice because it's a genre for everyone. It's not just women, it's men, women, whatever, however you identify. And I think that's important that we've opened the doors to let it become that and not be afraid of it. So, or ashamed. We shouldn't be.
Okay, got it. Well, going into my next question, like many women's hobbies, there is a lot of stigma, judgment, and scrutiny surrounding the genre of romance. We've kind of touched on this a little bit already about how it's affected the genre, your reading experience, but how can we dismantle these beliefs and start to change them? I think we've already started, but what else do we think we can do? We as the collective reading community, not just writers.
So I think because so much of the reader and writer community in romance is women, I think the more of us, that's not a sentence.
More of us that?
The more of us that fight back against it, make it easier for others to join that fight. And I think that's important because it's not just this topic. There are so many times when a woman's voice is silenced or is quieter, or whether the woman speaks and isn't heard, or the woman is unwilling or unable to speak. And I think what we need to do is just keep going. And it is sometimes honestly exhausting, and it's, I think, okay to say that it is exhausting to have the same conversation over and over again. What I write is still valued, what I write does still matter, it is still a book, it does still count. Like, it happens all the time. Like, what was the last thing you read? I read a romance book. What was the last real thing you read? I read a romance book. And I think you just need to keep doing that. You just keep one way. It's persistence, and I think it's using your voice when you may see someone else's being silenced, when they hit the point of exhaustion. Being the backup, I think, can be extremely important. Like, don't let them win. Don't let the man keep you down.
Very well. I also think too that like talking about what romance does and is because people just call it smut, right? And there's that conversation of what is wrong with stories that center the pleasure of people besides cishet men, right? Like, number one, there is nothing wrong with books that are sex positive, and smut feels like such a dismissive word to me. So there's that conversation, but then there's also the like I teach a whole class on contemporary romance because I think that like it is worth studying because you learn so much about like how we see the world and how we define who's a hero and a heroine, who gets a love story, who doesn't. And there's so much about consent and communication and connection and what is healthy connection, what is healthy communication skills that come out of romance that have so much value. And that I think like those Lyssa Adams books, the Bromance Book Club, always makes me laugh as a concept because I do think like other like men and people who don't read romance would get so much value out of reading the genre, even if you're not trying to pick up somebody, right? Because it's just so much about being a human being, right? And that gets lost in the dismissal of it as just smut, as just romance, as just things bored housewives. Like bored housewives don't have whole intellectual lives, right?
Yeah.
And when do they have time to be bored?
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think that also kind of gets into an interesting topic. There have been studies that show that reading raises people's empathy levels. And so I think that also goes back to an interesting conversation, maybe to be had another time, about how reading outside of your comfort genre, maybe if you don't usually read romance, reading romance, or even vice versa, if you don't usually read, say, like historical fiction, picking up a historical fiction, can help you gain different perspectives. Yeah.
Or reading romance novels that aren't your lived experience.
That too.
Right? Like one of the best things about romance is it is one of the more inclusive adult genres. It has a ways to go like everything else, but like seeing so many great queer romances coming out, seeing romances set in a variety of different cultural experiences to see how love looks different outside the Western European sort of understanding of romance, can also do that work within the genres you love, right?
Yeah.
Is read about couples who don't look like you and the couple you're in.
There's that one quote that I really like where it's like reading fiction can either be a window or a mirror.
Yeah, exactly.
And there's a really great game I'm playing right now that's like great art is both. And I think that obviously is like huge in romance as well.
Completely agree. Oh, yeah, okay. You were reaching for a mic, so I was like, no. By going into like romance even more, romance novels aren't always filled with fluffy feelings. They often tackle harder topics like grief, trauma, racism, homophobia. Why do you think that's important? I love this. I'm ready. Give it to me, Chelsea.
So I said I read sports romances, but I also talk about a lot of like athlete mental health in these sports romances. A lot of time you read sports romances and everything's great and life is so good and the guy gets millions of women and hooray. But there's also another side of, I think in recent years, we're seeing athletes share more about their mental health struggles, you know, the comments people leave on, I'm a big sports fan, so I see the comments people leave on teams' pages after a team loses, telling athletes to unalive themselves, that they suck, you know, just all this stuff that comes with being a sports fan. And so when I was writing these sports romances, I was like, well, it doesn't feel real to not include some of that into these books. So yeah, it is light and fluffy and banter and yay, everyone's having a good time, but there's also like, in the first one, he's, you know, one of the best players in the league, but like he never feels like anyone wants him for longer than a night because of who he is. In this one, he obviously loses a limb, so there's that whole, you know, internal struggle of, well, he's not a hockey player anymore, so what is he? Because that's what he's been reduced down to. And as far as women too, you know, women not feeling powerful, not feeling like they have a spot or a place. And I think it's really important to have those conversations because that happens in real life too. Like, you know, everyone, I don't know, you see happy people, that doesn't mean they're happy all the time. And as much as we all love to tell those happily ever afters, it doesn't feel authentic, at least to me, to not cover some of those other topics. And I know authors who, right outside of the community I'm in also cover those topics, because that's what happens in real life. And I think it would be a disservice not to tell those stories.
So I think it's what we were talking about, just what Jenny was saying just a little bit ago. It's like these books cover so many different things. They give you an avenue into so many different circumstances that may or may not be your lived experiences. To me, a romance book is a whole ass story that also has romance. So of course it's going to cover all those different things, because that is what stories are about. In my first book, we have my female main character is dealing with the loss of her mother, and we touch on so much grief and how that kind of has changed her entire perspective on what happiness is and what she should be seeking in life. And I mean, that's because that happens. People lose parents and it rocks their world. So yes, she also finds love, but she is, outside of Jake, a whole ass person with a whole ass life. And I think that's something that, especially going back to one of our earlier questions, like people who don't read romance, who think it's just smut, it's a book that is a book, also with romance.
I think it also just touches on what we've been talking about of what defines the romance genre, and it's that happily ever after, or it's that like happily for now, or it's the happily ever after.
For now is okay too.
Yeah, mine's kind of a for now, but I think it's the fact that like hope is really kind of what defines the genre, and just that thread of like they will find love and they will get together at the end and they will be happy, and it's not just like that thread is not just for the romance. Like we're not just like hoping they end up together. It's they're going to find love despite everything or because of everything they've been through. And so like burnout is like a huge theme in my book. I wrote the book when I was burnt out. My main character is burnt out and she's recovering from that. She doesn't know what to do with her life. She doesn't know what comes next. And so I think it's just the fact that we have that assured happy ending isn't just for the couple. It's more just for like these people and whatever they're going through and whatever they're experiencing. And I think that's just the most natural story, but also just that theme of like, it's going to be okay. No matter what's going on, it will be okay. And I feel like people can come to the genre for that as well and do.
All good? All right. So as authors, going to a little bit of a lighter topic, we not only write, but we also read. What authors inspire you and why? All right. Let's go.
I started really writing when I was 13, and I wanted to be R.L. Stein. And I used to go home from school every day, and I would write my own like murder mystery. My biggest one was called Camp Death 2. Down by the pool. There was no Camp Death 1. So like I feel like this is something we need to do in publishing. It's just like mess with somebody and like publish a sequel and have everybody trying to figure out what the first book is.
Camp Death 1?
Right.
Who knows?
I don't know. But I think if I went back to 13-year-old me now and was like, here you go, she would be like, where's the murder? Like, what is going on? So like my biggest influences to start were R.L. Stein and Christopher Pike. But in terms of like when I started really getting into reading romance and stuff, like Julie Murphy was one of the first people doing plus size rep in anything. Olivia Dade, Talia Hibbert, and then Hannah Bonham Young writes some of my favorite romances. So.
There's so many, I don't even know where to start. I feel similarly in that when I was in middle school, like my very first fantasy book was by Brent Weeks, which is a very like, I love those books, but they're very masculine and they're very just kind of like dark fantasy. And for a lot of times I was just like a fantasy girly till like college, and then I started reading more romance and stuff. And And my favorites and inspirations change all the time, but I feel like when talking about my book and when talking about like the recent ones I really love, Tara Tai wrote Single Player, and they're also a Boston native, and I feel like just reading, I really love reading like nerdy love stories. I mean, I wrote one, Olivia Dade has Spoiler Alert, which was huge inspiration for this book, and I just feel like that's maybe another thing with romance. It's something we didn't talk about, or we like hid in certain things, but like being in a space like FanExpo, and like I used to play games, and I wouldn't tell anyone that like I played World of Warcraft in high school. I didn't tell any of my high school friends that I did that because I was very shy about it. And I feel like now, like getting older and stuff, like I came to FanExpo and like I cosplayed, and people, it's not something to be ashamed of. It's something that people are really excited about and want to tell everyone about that. So I really like that in my romance as well. So I'd say Tara Tai and Olivia Dade are probably two of my favorites doing that as well right now.
Listen, I still play World of Warcraft.
I know, we should connect.
We do, yeah. Nerds.
So for me, in terms of romance, the reason I didn't answer the COVID question before is because I was still a lawyer during COVID. I was still a lawyer after COVID, and it was horrible. Everything was awful. But once I emerged from that, one of the first series I read was the Love Like Farm series by D.K. Morrison. And she has talked extensively about how this series started during COVID because she was looking for a safe place because nowhere felt safe. And every single time I read that series, and I read it's one per season, it starts with Love Like Farms, which is the Christmas book, the winter season book. I read that book, whether by audio or eyeball reading, every single year, and every single year it just feels like a safe, warm hug. So that, just everything about her, right? That's the audio piano.
It's the audiobook, Soul's Romance audiobook.
Are they reading priest over there?
They are learning how to properly use a piano.
So, D.K. Morrison's writing it is so comforting to me. But I would be remiss not to mention Isla Sikorsky. She is what I call my author wife. She was a friend before we became authors, and we started writing at the same time. And we went through this entire indie author process together, and I would not be here. These books would not exist without her, because there was so much I didn't even know that I didn't know. And we were in the trenches together every goddamn day. And just having someone else holding your hand there is life-changing. So, her first book is For the Hope of It All. Small Town Cozy Romance is also, love her pieces.
Being an author and a reader is hard because you read a book by an author and you're like, I can never write anything as good as this. And I feel like there's a lot of authors out there. When I read, I'm like, well, why do I even try? But I think, like Allie Hazelwood, I read Love Hypothesis during COVID, and I was like, this is gonna blow up, and it blew up. And I love that she has a formula down for her books, and I love it. I eat it up every time. Kennedy Ryan has a fantastic way of writing romance that, my God, you will just cry and sob and want to. That's a book you're like, is this going to end in a happily ever after?
Before I let go.
Yeah. Jeez Louise. Like that I feel like is like, that is like romance at its heart, with like, you get it's a story with romance. Like, you get the characters, you get the development. Kennedy Ryan is fantastic at doing that. So if you're looking for a book like that, where you're gonna cry and be really upset, no, I'm just kidding. It's really, she writes really well. And then I am an indie author, so I self-publish, and there are a couple indie authors who have been really killing the romance game. But I can think of one, Peyton Corinne. She just actually went traditional published too. She writes really strong mental health representation in her books, as well as sports, which I love. And hers are more college-centered, but it's just, I love picking up books like that because you know you're going to there's just so much woven into the stories, and I think that's so important. And her and Kennedy Ryan, I think, are doing so many wonderful things for the romance genre. So
Amazing. So, speaking about other inspirations, outside of writing and reading, we also have other hobbies. Tell us about one of your other hobbies and how, if at all, it has impacted your writing.
I'm training for a marathon. This is like number 14.
Wow.
Okay, well, yeah, thanks. And weirdly enough, running is like the only time when I can turn my brain off, but it's also where I get some of my book ideas. And I'll like come back from a run and I'll say to my boyfriend, like, don't talk to me. I need to put this in my phone really quick. So I repeat it in my head. Like if I think of like a line or a scene, I repeat it in my head till I finish my run, and then I get home and I type it out on my phone. But I think because we all spend so much time in front of our computers, that like when I step away, I feel like that's like the creative relief that I need. So I have a lot of ideas when I run, and I like to go to theme parks and hang out with friends and travel. I know, I'm really excited for this. I'm really excited for this. And being a flight attendant, I like to travel a lot too, so.
I know I said, obviously I'm very geeky and I play a lot of D&D. You would hope that if I wrote a book about it. But another space I think that romance is starting to blow up in a similar way to like books as like video games. Like Baldur's Gate 3 was huge. I think if anyone likes Baldur's Gate 3, I think you might enjoy a book like this one. And I feel like it used to be, there were like some gamers and stuff who'd be like, I'm not going to play this if there's romance, or I'm not going to engage with it. But now there's like a huge community who are like, I'm only playing this if there's like a romance option in it. And so obviously I do a lot of that. I think like those communities have been super inspirational. All of my D&D groups and the friends that I've made through that. But also I just think the media format of like video game storytelling is so cool because it just gives you an agency that, like when you're reading a book, you're like watching a story play out, but when you're playing a game, you kind of get to be the person making the thing happen. So I'd say those are very inspirational for me as a writer, and right now my current game is Claire Obscure Expedition 33, which I think I will be crying soon when I finish it. But yeah, so that's my hobby that really influences my writing.
I'm a big Lego person. Just to increase my nerddom here. I can't keep flowers alive. All the flowers in my house are Lego. Yes. They are. I have done the trend of like flowers in the like vials. I've done that with Lego flowers on my dining room table. I have taken one flower and put it in a little apothecary cup all over my house. None of my flowers die, thank God, because I can't keep them alive. But I also have, like, I'm really into the modular ones where you create like all the stuff inside. So I have like the entire street on the top of one of my set of bookcases. Okay. And then my secondary obsession is Godzilla. So my husband bought me a like Lego knockoff Godzilla who's attacking the town, but he's like not the right size, so he looks like baby Godzilla because he only goes up to the second floor. Right? And I'm also starting to get into trying to make my own custom things. So like right now, I'm trying to build a replica of the haunted house that's a setting for my next year's YA book.
Love that.
That might be on my arm. And so it is like, first of all, it's really great for my anxiety because I'm like focused on something else. It's great for ADHD. I like write for half an hour, then I do one bag from a Lego set, and then I get back to work. But it also can be like a really cool inspiration too.
I'm an unapologetic Disney adult, so Disney is definitely one of them. Oh, I'm reading. Okay. I came to your launch event. I know. Bought it. And I'm reading it. Give me 2 copies. I'm just gonna wallpaper my damn house with it. It's beautiful. So I'm a Disney adult, and I do love going down to Disney and eating snacks. Eating snacks is a hobby, definitely. The other thing that I do micro crocheting, which means I crochet with thread and a 0.6 millimeter hook, and this is a teeny tiny pumpkin.
The teeny tiny pumpkins are my favorites.
Something to do with my hands. So I do teeny tiny crocheting also because it's easier to transport around the city than a giant skein of yarn.
That's fair. Yeah.
It doesn't make it like your eyes water.
So I am far side? Near side? I can't see far away, so up close I'm still good.
All right.
I am probably ruining that.
Writing books is already ruining it. Like,
Yeah.
I was a lawyer. Come on, like I stared at screens. It's over now.
It's over.
Whatever.
So we are wrapping up, about to head over to the Q&A portion of this panel, but really quick, in just a couple of words, tell me what you're working on next. Chelsea, go.
I am working on rival meteorologists who spend the summer together in Florida chasing hurricanes and tornadoes. That's coming out next year with Atria, 2026. Very excited. I'm a Florida, I don't know if you could tell I said y'all. I'm from Florida. Love weather, love hurricanes, track them every year. I am not a meteorologist. I have no science degree. But I had this idea 3 years ago during a hurricane when I was down in Florida with my parents. And sold it to a publisher earlier this year, so I'm very excited. Forced proximity, banter. She hates him, he's obsessed with her. Women in STEM, again, women in a field where it's mostly male dominated. So very, very excited for that next year. And another hockey book later this year.
So excited. I also say y'all, I'm from Texas. Yeah, the y'all table, the purple y'all table. I am writing another D&D romance, and that's all I can say about it so far.
I actually just printed the first draft of book 3 in the Lovestruck Books series. It's called Guess and Pray. It'll come out February 24th. It's not a reformed playboy, he's just kind of a slut. And a single mother, fake dating, the slowest slow burn. Like when I was telling my friends how long it took for them to kiss, there were threats made against me. I'm not sorry. So yeah, that'll come out in February. And then after that, I am toying with a couple of standalones. One of them is a Friends to Lovers in Arizona, where I went to high school and college, and I just think is such a fun place to write about because it is so different from everything. If you haven't been there, you don't know it. So that one is the characters that won't shut up and wait their turn.
somebody please tell Jared Padalecki my next book is a ghost hunter book. Someone please. Thank you. Thank you. Tell him, and then tell him to tell Jensen. Fall 26. I would love to do an event with them. So my next YA book, which has not been announced, so you are all getting secrets, is about a girl whose mother buys the haunted house in town, and they're renovating it, and she doesn't believe in ghosts, but the contractor's son does, and is convinced that house is haunted, and has been making YouTube videos about it. And the two of them might fall for each other as they try to figure out if the house needs a bulldozer or an exorcism. So someone tell Jared this is happening. Delacour romance. All right, excellent.
The Lovestruck team has Jenny's back.
Okay.
All right, so last little bit, Q&A. I want to use these last 15 minutes wisely. So ground rules: state your name, then state your question, and then like a sentence or two of context. That way we can answer as many questions as possible. If you start with context, I will have to cut you off and say, what's your question? It's not me being rude, it's me wanting to get everyone their turn. So, who's got a question? Please don't raise your hands at once. Yes?
Hi, I'm Jason.
Hi, Jason.
Hi.
Jason.
Too many rules.
I know. What advice would you give a writer who does not write romance as the main story, but is looking for more, tips on how to write romance when you're not a romance writer?
Man, sorry, I'm a writing teacher, so you say advice, and I'm like, I'm here. So I think whether you're writing romance or like a love story as the primary, which is what happened in romance, or secondary in other texts, I think always thinking about how does the love story help support or complicate the main plot, right? So if they are, pairing up for something, how is falling in love going to make that a problem, or help them do it better, or whatever, that there needs to be, I find at least as a reader, if the romance doesn't intersect with the main plot, you'll lose me on either the romance or the plot. So trying to intersect them.
Reading also helps. Find your subgenre, like if it's cozy mystery or anything like that, or whatever. Find the bestsellers in that subgenre, and just read those. Because I mean, I'm always reading. I know we're all always reading like romance. But if there are plenty of subgenres out there. I know like cozy mystery is a big one recently, where the story is a mystery, but there is a little bit of a love story infused in there. So try to find the subgenres, and that helps. That will help a lot. Yeah, because we're always still learning ourselves.
Next question, you have a cute blue back there.
Hi, I'm Devin.
Hi, Devin.
Hi, Devin.
My question is, what are some of your favorite tropes in romance? Because I know there are tons, and you've touched on like a few during the talk, but I'm just curious about like some of your absolute favorites.
I'm really into rivals to lovers right now. Enemies to lovers is good, but rivals to lovers, when you've got like the same thing that you're going for, it's just a very fun dynamic for me. Yeah, that's my short answer. I really enjoy that, especially in like an academic setting.
I'm a huge fan of enemies to lovers, but I don't want them to just be kind of like, man, I want you to fucking hate each other. And just watching how that changes, and especially when they have the shit moment, I love it.
Grumpy sunshine. But grump has to be grumpy, not a jerk. I feel like there's a fine line.
Not fully.
No, just like mumbles and doesn't find anything funny except the love interest. Because that moment where they make the sunshine makes the grumpy laugh for the first time, every book I'm just like, oh, do it again.
When she doesn't like him, but he's obsessed with her. And I mean like obsessed. Like, watches whatever show she's on, or, anything like that. I love when she just can't stand him and he's just a little lovesick puppy.
I'm gonna plug my favorite, which is when he is head over heels for her and she has no idea. Idiots in Love. It's my favorite. Star-crossed Idiots is my favorite.
Can we coin that?
Yes, Idiots in Love, put it on a t-shirt. Someone in merch, please do that. Yes.
Just have a question. What do you guys feel is overused in romance?
Interesting.
Do it.
Do it.
Miscommunication? I get it. It's realistic. I know the argument is always it's realistic. But I don't know. For me, when I'm writing, I'm like, you're 35 years old, just talk. That's, for me, that's how I look at it. But again, it's a real thing that we all experience for whatever reason, anxiety, fear of rejection, things like that. But it's miscommunication is hard for me to get through. I don't know.
Drop it. Mine, personally, third act breakup.
Oh, yeah.
I can deal with third act separation. Like, sometimes you need some space, sometimes things happen. Like, if it's a book, like, you have conflict, something's gotta happen. But always being a breakup, that's just me, though, maybe.
Yeah.
Any other overused tropes?
I'm having that moment where I don't think I've actually ever read a book in my life.
Okay, love that. Next question.
Wait.
Hold on. Jenny, go.
Enemies to lovers when they're not really enemies, and it's
That's
getting
very
like
fair, yes.
right. Which is, I feel like enemies to lovers really only works in fantasy, where like you can be rival countries or something that makes you true enemies. Otherwise, it's rivals.
If there's not a dagger, it's not
Right. If no one's putting a literal knife to your throat, are you enemies? I don't know. But like rivals is a different dynamic than enemies, which I love.
I think the difference is, are you willing to kill them?
Right.
That's coming from the fantasy writer, though. So.
It's hard to do it.
It's hard to do
unless you're
You need a lawyer to consult about how you can maybe kill somebody in contemporary romance and get away with it. Right?
Yes.
I also think it's okay if we have a couple blonde love interests. I feel like there's so much hate for them online, and I don't understand. I want all the hair colors. I want no hair. I want lots of different representation rather than just like dark hair all the time.
That's fair. Very fair. I saw a hand in the back over here. Yes.
Yay! So, hi, I'm Kalila. My question is, how has queer relationships been portrayed over time? As context, like, you guys were talking about how, like, romance is such an amazing genre because you can put, like, whatever into it as well. And as, like, society changes over time, people who write will also put different stories into their books. So how has the changing society over time kind of like helped or changed the representation of queer people and relationships?
Okay.
Professor Jenny?
Here I am. I've been summoned. So, I mean, I think over the past, so the young adult space probably started this in 2015 or so with We Need Diverse Books, where there was like a real push to see voices beyond white cishet voices, able-bodied voices in children's books, in young adult books. And that has, I think, started to make its way to adult, and I think romance is one of the adult categories who's like taking that seriously to the best result, right? And so like my book club last month read A Gentleman for a Gentleman, which is a historical romance with 2 trans men leads, right? And this is not, it was excellent too if you like historical. TJ Alexander does a great job of playing with the like Regency tropes, and it's funny, and like you wouldn't have seen that 5 years ago, right? And that's from a traditionally published author, I mean, on shelves everywhere, right? And you're seeing queer books written by queer authors as opposed to by white, straight women, right? And so I think that the more that publishing, and indie is doing so much work with diversifying in ways that gatekeepers in publishing are still slowing that process down. So thank God for our indie writers who are doing that work big time. But publishing, romance publishing is getting there, and it's getting there with the voices who can speak to those lived experiences, which I think the more we get that, the more we get people to read them, the more that helps to remind the world that there is not a normal identity, that people exist across spectrums of sexuality, gender, who you are. I mean, we're seeing ace romances, which I think is so important because people are like, well, ace people don't have relationships. And it's like, no, that's not that simple, right? Like, and so I think that's one of the ways in which this genre is becoming so important. And sorry, I talked for like 20 minutes.
Professor Jenny, shut down.
I mean, when you know things, Jenny. I mean, I don't have anything else to add. I think that was like perfect. I have time for 2 more questions. Yes.
Hi, Maya. I was just curious, is there a way or any advice to write unpredictable romance? Because I feel like you always know they're going to get together, and is there any way to add surprises to the plot?
Writing unpredictable romances when we know they're getting together at the end. Professor Jenny.
I'm back. I'm never getting invited back, am I?
I'm actually taking you everywhere with me.
Okay, perfect. I think it's about how you play in the formula, right? The unpredictability is in what kind of characters are you putting in this story? Like, how do they not seem to naturally fit together? Where people are like, how is this ending happily? It's how do you take the conflict in the 3rd act, whether it's a breakup or something else, and do it in a way you haven't seen before, right? Because the happily ever after we know we're getting to, but it's the ride. How do you make the ride unpredictable is the thing that I think like my favorite romance authors do really well, right?
So for me, I feel like when I'm reading or when I'm writing, every once in a while I'll have one of these like really unhinged thoughts. It's like, well, what if they did this instead? Poke it really hard and see what happens. Like, you don't have to keep every idea, but unravel that a little bit. Be like, take the silly unhinged ideas and follow it for a bit and see where it goes, and just see what comes from there. Step away from it for a minute. Think about the obvious answer, and then just try to brainstorm yourself with the complete opposite of it. And be like, okay, if I were here, how would I get back? Do I like that journey? The other thing, which I'm surprised we haven't gotten to already, write the book you want to read.
Yes.
Write the book you want to read. So if you're having a good time with it, keep going.
I think that's my favorite piece of writing advice of all time. That's the one I say the most as well.
I'm so surprised, like I can do.
Yeah, no, it's the best
Hasn't
one.
come up.
We went in different directions today. We were unpredictable.
We
We're
were.
unpredictable. Look at us.
Yeah. If anything, I mean, I agree absolutely all of that. And I think if anything, you could say like the romance can be the predictable part. Like they are going to get together and they probably will have chemistry or they'll have interest in each other, and that's the part that's predictable. So all the things that surround it, whether that's the conflict or a personality quirk that they have that maybe is different or at odds with what their partner has, or what is there something about like their romance where why can't they be together, or what is it that stands in their way? So I think if you know already, well, the predictable part's kind of set in stone, what are all the roadblocks I can put in front of the predictable bits?
Character development, that's also really important. Like if you have a playboy who you're like, there's no way he's going to settle down, you know, how you're infusing the character development over time to get to that happily ever after, I think is really important, because otherwise it's not going to be believable. But, you know, still making sure you stick to the genre guidelines of it has to have a happily ever after.
Do anything else, but it
has to have happily ever after.
All right, last question. Who wants it? You with purple.
I'm Victoria, and how, especially in the context of you read for inspiration, how do you compartmentalize so that what you've read doesn't stick and like flirt with the edges of plagiarism?
So, how we said, write the book you want to write. I read a lot of sports romances, and I'm like, I want to put her in the NHL, I'm going to do it. So I think you just have to find a way to make it your own. And again, it is a predictable genre. You know the two characters are going to get together, but as we were saying, the journey, how they get there, what their jobs are, how they interact, their personalities. I think you can make it, because hero meets girl, they fall in love. That's going to happen. But it's, you know, it's the other things that you do along the way. And I know that sounds just so, you know, easy, but I mean, you could line up 5 sports romances or 5 rom-coms, and they're all going to be different. And I think it's just kind of finding your writing style. And like, I know I write banter well, so like I will lean in banter to kind of, you know, make it my book a little bit different from somebody else. But you just have to kind of find that. We all do write the same thing, but like none of us write the same thing. It's just, yeah, it's.
Somebody.
No, that's fine. I was just going to jump exactly into what you were saying. Is like, I feel like you don't need to, or don't feel like you have to reinvent the wheel. Like, we're all on the same team. That's one thing with authors, is I feel like anyone who thinks another author is competition is not coming at writing at the right kind of mindset. So don't feel like you have to reinvent the wheel. Like when I wrote my book, like I had read Christy Boyce's Dungeons and Drama, which is a YA D&D romance. So good, highly recommend. And then I was kind of like, okay, what if we did that in the adult space, and what if we got to see more of the fantasy aspect of the Dungeons and Dragons campaign? So don't feel like you're stepping on anyone's toes or anything like that. Like, we're all celebrating the same things. We're all on the same team. And even if you're like, I really like shadow daddies in my romantasy, let's have a shadow mommy or whatever. Like, if you twist one thing, or you're like, I just want to explore this other thing, it's the most pressure I think writers put on themselves is, I've got to have the next crazy big thing that does something different than everyone else. Someone's probably already done it, or someone's done it like 50 years ago, or will do it in 50 years. And I think that's okay, and that's beautiful that we all love the same stories and can tell it. No one's going to be able to tell the story that you can. It is one thing to remember as well. Like, it's always going to be different because you're the one writing it. So
That's what I was going to say. It's like, I put a teeny tiny piece of myself into every one of my characters, and no one else could do that because no one else is me. And it could be the smallest thing, like how they take their coffee, or something that their partner has said to them, or just the smallest thing where I'm like, oh, this is something that I have lived. No one else has lived your life, so if you write the book for you, it will not be the same as anyone else's, because nobody else is you.
All right. right. My little 2 cents on this is you can give the same authors. Take all 5 of us up here, for example, and we can take the highbrow concept for my book, To the Gallows, which is a cozy cottagecore romantasy that's like Tangled meets The Princess Bride, right? Like that is a very that gives you a good idea of what's happening in the book. Like you don't know the specifics, but you give that concept to all 5 of us, even if we all have like, okay, this guy's gonna die, she saves him, then something happens, they fall in love. We're all writing something different. Like, even if there are the same scenes, the same tropes happening, we all, like Kim said, put a little bit of ourselves into the book. And I think that that is really and truly what makes writing different, what keeps the plagiarism thing at bay, because we're all different. Like, unless you actually copy and paste text from one book to another, I think you're in the clear. But that's all the time we have for this panel. Thank you everyone who came. Thank you to all of the lovely speakers, and thank you to Lovestruck Books for having us here. We are all going to be here for the next hour-ish, signing books and answering any last-minute questions. So please feel free to come on up, purchase a book from us. We can sign and personalize it. Or if you don't want to wait in a line, I believe they have our books back at the table over there.